Hey everyone, Demonite here. This video is going to be about grenade damage in Borderlands 2 and the pre-sequel, what exactly it is and how it works. I have done a video about grenade damage before, all the way back in 2015, and I thought it would be a good idea to remake that video because the old one is missing some info and is also not of the best quality. So let's get started with the basics. Grenade damage is a type of damage in Borderlands different from elements. Damage types are things like gun damage, melee damage, grenade damage and some others, while elements are more like the flavor the damage comes in. This is important to note so that you don't confuse grenade damage with explosive damage, since explosive is an element and not a damage type. Grenade damage can be explosive, but it can also be corrosive, slag or any other element. Some attacks can even have multiple damage types at the same time. What that means is that the attack is simply affected by multiple things. Take for example a gun with grenade splash damage like a torque pistol. The splash will be affected by both grenade damage and gun damage boosts. Grenade damage will also always be multiplicative to other buffs, which is why it can be a pretty significant bonus to your damage output. Using the B shield on a gun with grenade splash means that its amp damage will apply to both the bullet and the splash, the latter of which will then be multiplied by grenade damage, something that regular gun damage boosts won't do. That leads me to my next point, being the kinds of attacks that are boosted by grenade damage. Obviously grenades themselves are boosted, but as I already mentioned, guns can be boosted as well if they have a specific type of splash damage. If you're unfamiliar with the mechanics of splash, I have made multiple videos about it, and all that info can also be found in the guides I've written for both Borderlands 2 and TPS. I will link to them and to lists of all guns with splash damage and what type they have in the description of this video. Guns with grenade splash damage are marked with green numbers there. Anyway, something that is also affected by grenade damage are Tediore reloads. Almost all of them are, with just two instances that aren't. One being Tediore rocket launchers, as they deal launcher splash damage with their reload, with one exception, the bunny, which again deals grenade damage. The other instance are the child grenades spawned by Tediore's plat gun reloads, those deal gun splash damage. The guides I made for all types of Tediore weapons will also be linked in the description. Grenades, splash damage and Tediore reloads are the main three sources of grenade damage, but there are still some other things that are also affected by it. A few other items like shields, various environmental hazards like barrels, and even some vehicle attacks are boosted by grenade damage buffs. But the most noteworthy one are certain skills. Between the 12 classes in Borderlands 2 and TPS, only 3 of them have skills that deal grenade damage. That is unless you want to consider skills that just throw additional grenades for you, like Creek's Pull the Pin, Claptrap's Talk Fiesta, Jack's On My Mark, or Salvador's Double Your Fun. Those are obviously all boosted. Now the 3 classes with such skills are Creek, Wilhelm and Athena. Creek has 5 of them, being Raving Retribution, Bloodsplosion, Light the Fuse, Buzzsack's Bombardier and Silence the Voices. Raving Retribution spawns homing fireballs and Bloodsplosion causes explosions that are boosted by grenade damage. Light the Fuse gets boosted both when you throw dynamite and when you perform the suicide explosion. Buzzsack's Bombardier adds explosive splash to your thrown Buzzsax, which is boosted by grenade damage, but it also makes the thrown axe itself deal grenade damage, which is then boosted by both grenade and melee damage buffs. And lastly, Silence the Voices adds a chance for you to hit yourself with a melee attack, which is unaffected by melee damage, but grenade damage will increase the damage you deal to yourself. Wilhelm has 3 skills affected by grenade damage, being Kinetic Armor, Termination Protocols and Vengeance Cannon. Kinetic Armor causes enemies that attack you to suffer explosive damage, and Vengeance Cannon shoots fireballs at enemies alongside your weapon. Termination Protocols only gets boosted on the nuclear explosion. The shock arcs you emit in Fight for Your Life are not boosted by grenade damage. And finally, Athena has 4 skills, being her action skill Kinetic Aspis, Prismatic Aegis, You've Got Red on You, and Hades' Shackles. Aspis and Prismatic Aegis are basically the same thing, the damage you deal when you throw the Aspis at an enemy. You've Got Red on You causes an enemy to explode on death, dealing damage to nearby enemies. And Hades' Shackles causes an incendiary nova on tethered enemies after a certain time, but only the nova is boosted by grenade damage and not the shock damage from the tethers themselves. One skill that might come as a surprise to not be on this list is Claptrap's Second Wind by Tediore. Despite the fact that it literally says explodes like a grenade in the description card, it is not affected by grenade damage. Which is also kinda sad, because Claptrap would be able to naturally boost grenade damage, unlike Wilhelm and Athena. Anyway, at the top of the description I will link to a document that contains all of the info of this video, as well as a list of all the things boosted by grenade damage that aren't grenades, splash damage or Tediore reloads. I'll also keep the list updated if more things turn out to be affected by grenade damage in the future. Lastly, one more thing to mention about grenade damage are the enemy resistances related to it. I have talked about this in detail in my video about damage modifiers of enemies, but to summarize it, certain enemies can have one or multiple resistances against grenade damage. The document linked in the description also goes into more detail about these resistances and how they work, and additionally it contains a list of all known enemies that possess them, but the list is kind of a work in progress at the moment. Now this doesn't concern a huge amount of enemies and some to a lesser degree than others, but it is worth knowing about so that you don't try to, for example, kill Saturn with Tediore reloads, since that would be an enemy with a very high resistance. Anyway, that's all you need to know about grenade damage. Feel free to ask questions in the comments if you have any. Thanks for watching and see ya everyone.